things. So without wasting much time, I would like to give an introduction about our speaker today, Mr. Kalyan Krishnamoorthy, a diverse entrepreneur, business scientist, solution orchestra, and a transformation expert on people, process, and technology. With over 2 decades of experience in the field of project management and operation management, with a specialization in quality across manufacturing, information technology, and services. He has a rich experience in training and consulting various world-class companies and thousands of students and professionals and leaders through many public programs. He is a certified Six Sigma Master Black Belt CSS MBB from Indian Statistical Institute and a Lean Master or a Re-engineering Customer Care Engineer from Renault Institute of Quality Management and SIGO's UK Certified Chartered Quality Professional CQP and a member of Chartered Quality Institute UK. Also a fellow member of Customer Service Institute of America, Certified Project Management Professionals from Project Management Institute, US, and a Certified Assessor of Business Excellence from Confederation of Indian Industries Institute of Quality. He is an empaneled lean manufacturing consultant by Quality Council of India, a national accreditation body for education and training. He is also an uplifting customer service champion and a writing back specialist from Up Your Service College, Singapore. Speaker at an international forums, including American Society for Quality 5th Annual Middle East Business Summit in Dubai and 2nd Quality Conference in Doha, and Madras chapter of Indian Institute of Industrial Engineering. Reviewer of paper for National Project Conferences India and member of panel judges of various conferences and competition such as National Quality Conference by National Institute for Quality and Rehabilitation and QIMPRO Convention. He is also a researcher with 4 international publications to his credit. His research institute includes a process excellence, service excellence, and experimental psychology. So this was an introduction about our speaker, and over to you, Dr. Kalyan.
Thank you, Renu. I hope I'm audible, and I'm also you're able to see my video as well. Thank you so much for the kind introduction, Renu. Please allow me to share my screen. So very good afternoon, good evening to everyone, actually from whichever part of the world. Actually, thank you for giving this opportunity. And I'll just take quick insights into the effective, quality management strategies for project success. So we'll focus on the key word here, which is basically for a project to be successful. What are the various quality management strategies? So the key word here is this, and what are the various strategies and how we are going to put this, and we'll see some examples also into that while we go through this journey. I think the facilitated introduction is already done by Renu. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. What we have is we'll talk about what is the 4th constraint in typically a project management. How do you define quality? What is quality in projects? What is quality planning, quality control, quality assurance, and how does it, what are the various strategies and tools that will be helpful for, a successful project execution. So that's what we're going to look at it actually, and we'll have a few minutes of question and answers. Please feel free to raise your doubts or any clarifications through a chat box, which will be through a chat, or you can unmute yourself and talk about it once we have at the end of this session. I think this introduction is already wonderfully given by Renu. Thanks, Renu, for that. So let's move on to the first one, which is basically the 4th constraint. So typically in a project management, we talk about scope, cost, and time as triple constraints, which is a very famous one, which we all know. But the assumption here is quality of how the project is executed and the quality of the deliverable from the project, which is the output of the project, which could be a product or a service, is always considered or presumed to be taken for granted. So there is a 4th constraint, which is basically how do we deliver a good quality product or a service or a deliverable from the project. A deliverable could be a product or a service, and also how. So the quality has 2 connotations here. One is on the quality of the output and the quality of the process and the input, how we do this project. So this is the fourth constraint. Most of the times, people take it for granted or not being spoken up much, actually. But there are certain schools of thoughts in project management which talks about this fourth constraint. So apart from the scope, cost, and time, which are critical triple constraints, which is also given by a project management body of knowledge, the fourth constraint is quality, and that's what we're going to look for and see what we can do about it. So, what is quality? Let's understand this. This is a very important one. It's basically about meeting the expectations and the requirement of stakeholders. In fact, project management body of knowledge talks about a project is deemed to be successful only if it meets or exceeds the expectations of the stakeholders. We've also seen there are certain projects which are technically successful, but however, still the stakeholders are not happy. So if unless the stakeholders are happy, unless the stakeholders' expectations are met or exceeded, a project cannot be considered successful, even though technically it may be, uh, successful or considered successful actually. Um, so in specific terms, what does quality means? Actually, obviously, we're talking about the functionality, performance, and reliability of the output or the deliverable from a project. It could be any project. Let's take an example of a information technology project of implementing a CRM solution. So obviously, I'm looking for certain features in the CRM solution as a customer or as a user. So obviously, I would expect the CRM to have the kind of functionality that I would expect, actually, right from a must-have to better features and delighters and some kind of expectations which is beyond the basics also. So functionality, and how does this CRM solution would perform in terms of its technical performance, in terms of its helping on the business side as well. The technical performance could be the response time, how much response time it takes, actually, how many seconds it takes to respond in a CRM system or any of those things. That's performance. The reliability is about the how trustworthy is this system in terms of it's not just the functionality and performance, but also its use in the long run. So functionality, performance, and reliability. So, and it can be applied to any project. I just gave an example of an IT project. It could be a project on construction. It could be in the project of manufacturing where you're setting up a plant, or it could be a project of improvement that you want to do in a HR function, or any project for that matter. So the way we look at the quality is how does it actually satisfy the requirements, expectations of the stakeholders, and going beyond that in terms of functionality, performance, and reliability. So how do we achieve this? Obviously, in quality, we are talking about what is called as quality trilogy. There are three things in that. How do we plan for quality? How do we assure for quality? How do we control quality? So obviously in project management, we have this typical 5 steps of how we do as a methodology, which is initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling and closing. So obviously in this whole methodology of how we run a project as a methodology, where does this quality management fits in? How do we plan for quality? How do we assure quality? How do we control quality in this whole process so that the project can be successful? So that's what we look at as a part of quality management in project. So in a nutshell, uh, what is quality is all about meeting the expectations and requirement of stakeholders. Sometimes we also go beyond meeting the expectations and requirement of stakeholders. That is also considered, actually. But project management body of knowledge also gives you a caution that don't do beyond what the customer wants sometimes, because it could have an impact on the other constraint, which could be your cost and time. There could be a cost, cost could be busting out of the budget, or the time delay could happen because you're delivering beyond the expectations also. So we have to be careful in a way to balance between meeting the expectations and going beyond the expectations. Going beyond the expectations is definitely good for customers, but from a project management point of view, from a project manager's view perspective, it is also important that we need to consider this in a balanced way so that our cost and time is not impacted because of going beyond the expectations. So that is how we define quality. Um, so let's look at what are the three things, the main pillars, actually, the how part of it, which we spoke about, actually. Quality planning. So what is quality planning and what is its focus actually? So if you really see the focus in planning for a quality is obviously into the planning stage of the process actually within the project management. So which is basically initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling, and closing. So quality planning fits into the planning phase actually. So when you plan for other things like planning for resources, planning for finance, and so on and so forth, you plan for quality also during the planning phase. And what is the focus in quality planning? Obviously, it is setting the standards. So when we say standards, there are two types of standards. It could be an output standard, which is basically an output means it could be a in project management body of knowledge, it's called deliverable. So the deliverable could have a product or a service, whichever actually. So which means we are talking about the output standard, which could be a product standard or a service standard. And also we are talking about the process standards, which is basically how part of it. How do we get this deliverable? So there are two types of standards. We'll talk about that in a moment. So the focus of quality planning is setting the standards. It's both output standards and process standards. And what is the purpose here? Basically decide what quality means actually. What is a quality means from a customer perspective, from a project management point of view, from a business point of view, from a regulator point of view. Look at from all the stakeholders, the various stakeholders. Obviously you have customer, you have user, you have business, you have regulators, you have the society, you have the people, the employees, all the stakeholders. From all the stakeholders point of view, I think we should consider what is quality. So example, actually, let's say if you're doing a software development lifecycle project, so obviously you'll be looking at acceptance criteria. How do I define what is acceptable for the end customers and the various stakeholders involved in this project? So in a software module, so obviously like in a CRM solution that I spoke about, so we're talking about what are the acceptance criteria, what are the features required in that particular CRM solution, what are the expectations from the customers. That's what we do in a quality planning. Quality assurance, which is part of execution in project management, methodology. So once you've planned, obviously I need to ensure that the quality is assured so that the customer gets the confidence, and all the other stakeholders also get the confidence that we're going to deliver this actually, because the quality assurance is all about how. So we'll talk about in a moment actually in detail what is quality assurance and quality control. So the focus here is on the process of delivering a project. So obviously, project management body of knowledge talks about processes which will deliver the particular deliverable which is expected out of a project. So let's say this example of a CRM solution. Obviously, the ultimate deliverable that we're looking for is a CRM solution. So the focus on quality assurance is on the process, and obviously the purpose. The main objective here is to prevent the defects. We don't want any defects. We don't want any surprise at the end of the project to say that there is a defect and we are the acceptance is not there. So obviously, let's say in this case of an example of a software development lifecycle, SDLC, uh, in quality assurance, we are looking at how are the coding guidelines and reviews are followed. How did I ensure that I did the testing and various other activities within the project to deliver that deliverable. So quality assurance is about how, it's about the process. The third stage is a quality control. The name itself suggests is control. That means here we are talking about the monitoring and controlling phase of a project. So, which is a very critical one actually. So, which is where the deliverable gets tested, inspected, checked, and finally agreed as a deliverable. So, here the focus is on the deliverable, the output. The output could be a product or service, like I said, and the objective here is to detect the defects. So you can clearly see the difference here. Quality assurance is about preventing the defects because it's on the how, and in the quality control, it's about detecting the defect. And what is defect, defective? We'll talk in a moment. I'll explain you in that. So what is quality control? Example, actually, once I have delivered the software, once I have done the coding, and I have followed the process and I have delivered the deliverable, obviously I need to test the software to find if there are any defects or bugs, or if there are any rework required, and so on and so forth. And that is part of the quality control. So, and it's a continual cycle. So there is a quality planning, there is an assurance, and there's a control. So the key words here actually is, we are looking at how do I prevent the defect and how do I detect the defect. If I detect the defect, how do I bring it back and then ensure that I prevent the defects? by working on the process. So that is our objective here, which is what is expected in any project management, and that's how what we are going to look at it. So let's get a very detailed, distinction between quality control and quality assurance. So let's understand that. And before that, I think we should understand the difference between, quality control. Sorry, quality versus grade actually. So let's talk about it. What is quality? What is grade? So before we jump onto the quality control, quality assurance, what is quality planning? Basically, we're talking about how do I define the scope of work? How do I get the specifications? What is the voice of customer? What are the requirements? How do I convert the voice of customer into design specifications so that it becomes very objective criteria? And what are the various processes and procedures I'm going to follow? What are the guidelines that I have? What are the resources required, time, and the entire planning that comes into part of the quality planning, and it's in the part of the planning phase. So let's understand this quality versus grade before even coming into quality control and quality assurance. So let's understand what is quality and grade. So let me give you an example. Let's say I want to buy a car. So I have an option of going for a car, let's say Toyota or a Kia, from a South Korean or a Japanese Toyota, or I might have an option to go for a BMW, let's say. Now, in terms of quality, what is the difference between this actually, apart from the specifications and features that we might have? Let's say with an apple to apple comparison, I want to go for let's say a sedan, and I have two models for me to choose, between two brands. It could be a BMW and a Toyota, let's say, or a Nissan, or any of those cars actually. So if you take these two examples and then look at it and compare, what do we mean by quality in this? Are we saying that, in terms of quality, if there is a difference between these two brands? So let's take one more example. Let's say you want to buy a shirt. I have an option to go and buy a shirt from let's say a street vendor, and or I can go into a branded shop, in a market, a place where I have a branded one. It could be a, let's say, Giordano or any of those actually branded one, and I can go and buy a shirt there. So is there a difference in quality here? That's the question. So let's understand what is that differs between any of these actually. It's not about just the brand and the psychological aspect of what it is actually, but it is about actually the most important thing, which is, does it meet my functional requirements? The quality guru talk about what is quality. Quality is about meeting the functional requirements. So in terms of this project also, when I deliver a deliverable, is it really meeting the functional requirement? Does it have all the technical characteristics beyond the functional requirements also? See, obviously, if I buy something from a street vendor on the platform side, or I go to a branded shop, in terms of quality, probably it might be meeting my requirement irrespective of whether it is from a street shop or from a branded shop. But in terms of technical characteristics, there could be a difference. And the same thing holds good for a BMW versus let's say, a Kia or a Hyundai or any of those, cars. So if you take that, so grade could be different, while it could still meet my functional requirements. So that doesn't mean that I can say that, a Hyundai is of a lesser quality or a lower quality compared to a BMW. So all we need to understand here is, let's get the basics on the quality as an understanding. So quality as defined by quality gurus are meeting functional requirements, whereas grade is about technical characteristics. In other words, what we are saying basically is low quality. Low quality is always a problem because it doesn't meet the customer requirements. Whereas a low grade need not be a problem because that is why I'm paying for it. So the plastic used in probably a BMW is of a higher grade with a better technical characteristics compared to a plastic used in a Hyundai. So whenever you use the word low quality from this time onwards, you better be careful. When you say low quality, that means it doesn't even meet the functional requirements. So this is the most important word, functional requirements. So a technical characteristics could vary from one product to another product or a service to another service. But however, a great, a quality should always meet the customer requirements, because the acceptance criteria from the customer is based on whether I can use it or it's not usable. So if it doesn't meet my functional requirements, obviously the product or the service that has been delivered is useless. So next time onwards, you better be careful. So low quality is always a problem, whereas low grade need not be a problem, because that's what I'm paying for that particular technical characteristics of a particular product or a service. So let's also understand the difference between quality control and quality assurance a little more, actually. In a better way, actually. How do we define quality control, quality assurance? This is a very important one. Sometimes we use this interchangeably. So let's get these fundamentals, and then we'll go into the strategies of how do we achieve project success with effective quality management strategies. Uh, Quality control is about output quality. So it's about either in project management body of knowledge, we talk about deliverable quality. So it could be a final deliverable or an intermediate deliverable, whichever the case, but it's output quality. Output can be a service or a product. So it can be a service or a product. It can be a tangible product, or it could be a service. Now, so what is quality assurance? It's about process. So in other words, what we are saying is we are assuring the customer through a good process that we will be able to deliver a output quality as required by the customer, as expected by the customer. So in other words, what we are talking about, quality control is about what? Process quality or the quality assurance is about how. How are we going to deliver a quality deliverable? That how, through which I'm going to assure the customer that I'll be able to deliver a good quality. So in other words, what we're saying is, if you take care of the process, naturally you're taking care of the output quality. So that's what is the difference. So remember, output quality is quality control, which could be a product or a service. Quality assurance is about process quality. So but to understand what is process quality, let's understand what is a process. A process is nothing but a set of activities which convert certain inputs to outputs. We all know this, actually. So anything which converts a set of inputs to outputs is called as a process. In other words, if we want to improve the output, we need to work on two things: the input and the process. So this portion is what we are talking about, the how. This portion is what we are talking about, the what, the delivery. What are we going to deliver? So in other words, this is your QA, this is your QZ. So if you look at this, so anything actually, if you take, so in quality control, what are we talking about? Whether a product or a service is meeting certain standards. So examples of a product standard, you would have seen a symbol called CE in your electronic equipments, any of these mobiles or any of those things. That's a product standard for electronic items. Underwriters Laboratories. You have various product standards depending upon the industry and whatever we have. So these are output standards. These are the things that are checked for whether it meets the certain standards on the deliverable in quality control. So what do we do? What is the equivalent in quality assurance? Here we are checking for whether the process meets certain guidelines, it adheres to certain standards, the way of how we perform this project. So examples of a process quality standard could be ISO, capability maturity model, any of those actually which talks about the guidelines on how to deliver something. It's about the how, like what we spoke. So whenever you do a quality control, that you're focusing on output quality to see if it meets certain standards, international third benchmarking standards, or it could be an internal standards. And how do we do this? Through various set of activities. What are those activities? It could be inspection, it could be testing, it could be checking. So the words like inspection, testing, checking are all related to quality control. So what is the equivalent here? Whenever I want to check if my process meets or adheres to certain regulations, the procedure, SOP, internal, external, does it meet ISO standards, and so on and so forth. If I want to do that, checking, so what is the activity that we do is basically it's called as audit or a process review or a process study, all of those things. So whenever I do an inspection, testing, checking to find out if my output quality meets certain standards, internal or external, I'm looking for what is called as a defect or a defective. So I'm looking for whether this particular deliverable is meeting the standards which has been set at the time of quality planning. So which means I'm checking at the monitoring and controlling in the monitoring and controlling phase through a quality control process with activities such as inspection, testing, checking to see if it is delivering a defect or defective product actually. And let's see the difference between defect and defective in a moment. So what's the equivalent in quality assurance? If you really see, when I do an audit or a process review, obviously to check if it meets certain standards, internal or external, it could be an ISO, CMMI, whatever, through audit or a process review, I'm looking for non-conformance. I'm looking for observations. What are the gaps in the process? I'm focusing on the how. So I'm supposed to follow a 5-step procedure. Did I follow the 5-step procedure? I used only 4-step procedure. Or I went overboard and I did some 7-step procedure because of my own learning. That means I'm not adhering to certain process standards. So that's part of the quality assurance. Now let's understand the difference between defect and defective. This is a term is also interchangeably used. So defective is what the customer sees. For example, let's see this is a product. This product is what I'm using as a user or a customer. And this product has n number of opportunities to fail. It could have a blunt nib edge. It may not even work. I'm not able to hold it. It could have any number of defects in this. So if you look at this, this could be a product which is defective product with n number of defects, and the defect could be anything. As I listed out, it could be the edge of the tip is not sharp enough. I'm not able to hold this pen, and so on and so forth. So as a the customer always sees the defective, but as an improvement guy from a project management perspective, as a project manager, when I execute a successful project, I have to look at defects, because defects is where I want to work on to improve things so that I don't deliver finally a defective product or a service. So I want you guys to understand the difference, fundamental difference between a defect and a defective. So whenever I do a quality control, I'm, either inspecting, testing, checking to see if it meets certain standards or not, and then I come across and look for a defect. Now, whenever I get a defect, obviously the next course of action is called as correction. So what is correction? It's putting off immediately, fixing the problem. So basically what we're talking about is here, we are fixing the problem immediately because the customer is going to suffer because I found a defect. I need to quickly fix it. But the moment I fixed it, the customer is happy, but the customer is going to ask one more profound question. The question that he's going to ask is, okay, I'm happy that you fixed it now, but what is the assurance that it will not actually repeat or reoccur in future? So which means the customer is asking for a assurance. That means this defect data is fed into quality assurance, and you work on a process improvement to ensure that the output quality is taken care of. So this is how we work on this. So ISO also calls it as correction. So what is the equivalent in quality assurance? It's called as corrective action and preventive action. In fact, ISO 9001 has removed this word preventive action itself. I have seen a couple of companies, actually a couple of organization, preventive action is done very, very effective, like Bosch, Toyota, a few companies in India as well, like TVS Group and all. They do this preventive action. So what is the difference between corrective action and preventive action? Let's get this understanding again, so that before we jump in there. So whenever I get a problem, whenever I get a defect, actually, where, on the deliverable or on the intermediate deliverable, that means I'm going to fix the problem. I'm going to immediately do a replacement, repair, do whatever actually replacement, repair, resupply, go to the customer, talk to the customer, understand the customer pain, ensure that the customer problem is fixed immediately. So that's like putting off the fire. You put off the fire. Let's say a building is on fire, you're putting off the fire. That's fixing the problem. Now, like what I said, actually, a customer is not going to stop there. He's going to ask you for, will this repeat? Will this reoccur? How are you going to assure me? So that's where we come out with corrective action, prevention. So let's take the example of the building on fire. So you put out the fire. Once you put out the fire, what do? So you immediately go back and then check for the causes for why this failure has happened. So you look for the suspicious cause or the cause that has caused this failure, actually. So that is what is called as fixing the process. For example, in this case of an example of a building on a fire, if this fire is because of a short circuit, is it because of a smoking bud? What has caused this fire? So I'm going to fix that, attack that particular cause that has caused this failure, and I'm going to fix the process. But can that guarantee in future that there will not be any fire in this building? No, not necessary. So obviously I have to go for preventive action, which means I'm not only going to fix the process, I'm also going to fix the system. In other words, what we are talking about is basically in fixing the process, I'm only looking at the probable causes. In fixing the system, in preventive action, I'm looking to address the potential causes that can cause fire in future, that can cause failure in future. So that means I have to brainstorm and look at all the potential causes that can cause failure in future also, even though it may not have happened in the past. So whatever the problems or the causes that has caused this problem from the past, actually, and if I'm going to fix that process, that's called corrective action. Whatever the causes that has actually may not have happened in the past, but it may happen in future, and I'm going to fix that. That is called fixing the system. That's called preventive action. So that's a huge difference between corrective action and preventive action. For to do a preventive action, it's going to take a hell of a lot of time. It's not easy. To do a preventive action, there is a famous tool called as FMEA, failure mode effects analysis. Actually, it's a very powerful tool. A lot of time and effort goes into this. So if you look at Six Sigma as a process improvement methodology, if you fix the process, if you attack the probable causes, that's what we call it as yellow belt or a green belt project. If you fix the system, where we are addressing the potential causes also, not just the probable causes, then it's called as a black belt project. That is why a black belt project typically takes from 6 months to even 12 months to 18 months. My black belt project, it was an 18-month project actually, where I have to look into the potential causes of these problems and then look at it. So that is what I want you to understand actually in terms of the difference between corrective action and preventive action. And correction is fixing the problem. So this gives you a complete idea in terms of what is the difference between quality control and quality assurance. This is a very, very important term we all need to understand, because these two terms are interchangeably used. Sometimes you use the word QA stroke QC engineer, QA QC manager, and so on and so forth. So we need to understand this. So please remember, quality control means output quality. Quality assurance means process quality. That's all I want you to understand here. Now, let's understand what are the various strategies of how do we do a planning for quality? How do we assure quality? How do we control quality? So as I said, I've just done a mapping of what is a project phase. There are project phases or steps that are involved. We all know that: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. These are the 5 stages of any project management. And each of these phases are composed of various processes. And the processes that we are looking at are 3 processes. We all know that, which is plan quality, assure quality, control quality. And what are the strategies for that? And what are the tools used for this? And what are the expected output of using this tool as a result of the successful execution of the strategy, so that finally the project is successful and it's able to deliver what the customer wants. So that is what I've just mapped it here. It'll be easy for you to understand. So if you look at in the planning phase of the project, any project that you do, it could be a construction project, infrastructure building, smart city, digital, any project for that matter. If you do, the process that we're looking at is plan quality. And one of the important strategy in plan quality is voice of stakeholders. And the stakeholders are multiple. As I said, it could be a customer, it could be user, it could be business, it could be government, it could be, any of those uh, people who are impacted directly or indirectly, negatively or positively. All of them are called as stakeholders. So the objective in quality planning or plan quality as a process is to get the voice of stakeholders. How do I get it? What are the various tools for this? So we can use various tools. It could be a quality function deployment. I will not go into the details of it for shortage of time. Quality function deployment is basically converting a voice of customer, the customer requirements, into specifications. Focus group discussions you can have. with various stakeholders to understand what is that they want, what are their expectations. Delphi technique, actually, Delphi technique is an anonymous technique we use to understand what are the stakeholders' expectations, because some stakeholders may even not express openly in terms of what they want. So the various techniques, it could be even a facilitated workshop. So the various tools used for obtaining the voice of stakeholders. And the objective of doing all these things is basically to get the customer requirements, the stakeholder requirements in the form of a BRD. BRD is what? Business requirement documentation, customer requirement documentation, stakeholder requirement documentation. If you're doing a vast infrastructure project, it could have an impact on society. Then society, the community becomes the stakeholders. So obviously you need to take the voice of the stakeholders. So that's one of the important strategies. Uh, Another important strategy that we have in planning the quality is defining the quality standards. What do we mean by that? Actually, I'll tell you in a moment. As I said, quality standards here has two types of standards: the output standards, the process standards. We spoke about it. So we are planning for standards actually. So one of the famous tool that we can use is CTQ tree. It's called critical to quality or critical to customer, CTC or CTQ, critical to quality or a critical to customer. Tree diagram, you can use it actually, and from there you can pick it up. And what are the various output for this? It obviously, I'm converting an English, the voice of customer, into specification objectively, which can be measured, which can be verified, which can be validated. That's why I'm using the word FSD, functional spec documented design document. So obviously all the requirements are converted into functional spec. Let me give you an example. CRM. So the voice of customer should be, response time should be very good. Now, how good is good? I can't understand, because what is good for you may not be good for me. So I need to convert this into a functional spec. So I will go again back and then try to put an objective metric into this to say response time, anything which is greater than 3 seconds is considered as bad. Anything less than or equal to 3 seconds is considered as good. So I'm defining a specification which is measurable, objective, verifiable. So that's what we do. And we also agree on a custom acceptance criteria on the basis of which a customer will accept. So then you also decide on what are the various quality tools that you're going to use. There are various templates, process map, check needs. The various tools are used there. So you come out with what are the standard operating procedures, what are the various metrics that you're going to use to see how the project is successfully delivering, how the project is executed. So as I said, it's all about what as well how. Both of this has to be really looked at. And you also look for how to plan for quality control and quality assurance. You can use a Gantt chart. You can use a 3W1H action plan. What, who, when, how. So there are various tools that can be used actually. And then you plan for your inspection, test, audit, review. So entire thing around this is about planning. It's in the planning phase. You basically plan for quality. And these are the strategies and these are the tools and the outputs, corresponding outputs that you're expecting out of this execution of these strategies. Now let's look at the next one, which is executing phase. In the executing phase, I'm trying to assure quality. And what are the strategies? In the assurance of quality, I'm reviewing for compliance. Am I following the standard operating procedure? Am I adhering to all the regulatory standards? Am I looking at all the things that which I'm supposed to do the way I planned it during the planning phase? That's called review for compliance. So how do I do? I can do an audit. I can do a process walkthrough. Gemba. Gemba is a Japanese word for shop floor. On the site, actually, I can go and look for whether people are following the procedure. Are they really following the work instructions and so on and so forth? So the output of this could be a non-conformance report, opportunities for improvement, how they're doing. Actually, is there a gap in the way that they're doing and how can we improve? And there is a continual improvement strategy which also comes in assuring quality. And here we can look at various methodologies. It's a huge subject. It's about Kaizen. Kaizen means small improvements, which comes from Japanese methodology. PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act, Lean, Six Sigma, TQM. There are various methodologies that can be looked at for continual improvement. The objective of this continual improvement is to achieve that the processes that we follow in this execution of this project are all stable as well capable. What is stable? Stable is the variation, the consistency is actually achieved. In other words, variation is under control. Capability means ability to meet the target. I already set some process standards. Are they meeting the standards? So if those standards are met, then it's called as a capable process. Then train and standardize is another strategy. I need to train people because I can't achieve a process execution or a process adherence unless people are trained, unless the processes and the way, the methodology, the way of working, everything is standardized. So obviously I do OJT, the on the job training. I do process control charts and various other things actually as a part of tools. And the output expected is I have a very competent staff as a part of my team in the project management. This project actually where they could deliver results. I will also have revised SOPs and lessons learned are all part of the output that is expected out of assuring quality. So this is part of the executing phase. Now then comes the quality control. This is part of the monitoring and controlling of a project phase actually. This is where we control the quality. And in this, the strategy is basically, as I said, it's about quality control, or control quality is all about output quality. So obviously I'm looking to identify the defects in the deliverable, either in our final deliverable or the intermediate deliverable. How do I do that? Inspection, testing, checking. What is expected out of it? Defect report, QC, pass, fail, okay, not okay, and so on and so forth. There are only two outcomes of this particular identifying defects: okay, not okay. QC, pass, fail. And monitor output quality on an ongoing basis. Output quality gets monitored. How do I do this? Monitoring control chart. Like a process control chart, you have a monitoring control chart on the output deliverable and look for characteristics. Basically, you're looking for a stable and capable output. Stable means the variation in the specifications as per the drawings or whatever the design. Is it meeting that? And actually, is it accurate also? Capable is ability to meet the target. Stability is maintaining the same level of consistency. In other words, the variation is under control. Verify deliverables is part of the control quality. So obviously I need to verify the deliverables, for which I use checklist. I'm going to tick actually whether I got all those deliverables which I planned during the quality planning, which came through the voice of customers, which was converted into functional specs. Has it been done as per what has been planned during the quality planning phase? That's a checklist, and the output of that is output delivered as per specification. So basically, these are the strategies that we use actually, in delivering a project to be successful. In three stages actually. You got a quality planning, you got a quality assurance, you got a quality control, and it's a continual process. If I have defects, obviously I need to go to quality assurance and then fix the process. So that means I have to go and revisit the plan. So it's a continual process. It's not actually a process where I do one time and then leave it there. So that is a very, very important thing I want you to understand. So this is a mapping to help you understand in each of the project phases, how do I manage this quality effectively, and what are the strategies that I apply actually in those stages so that I deliver what is expected from the customer. So those are the three things that I want to take you through today. Open to questions, anything that you have actually as of now. Please put it on the chat box also if you have any questions, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kalyan. And please, everyone, utilize this session for for asking your questions, any doubts you have it. And also we have put a feedback form, and we would really like to hear from everyone regarding this masterclass. Alternatively, you can unmute and ask the question as well.
Robert is saying it's clear. Kindly share the PowerPoint notes with us. Okay. Are you going to share the PowerPoint? Yes. Any other questions, please?
Yeah, Mr. Robert, please do fill in that Google form so that we can reach you out to that, because there are so many Roberts in the class, so we don't know which Robert is it. So please give your name as well as the contact number so we can reach you out correctly.
Any other questions? Any other comments quickly? Any other clarifications? I hope all the terminology is very clear. Fundamentals of everything in terms of how do we successfully execute a project.
So I guess there are no doubts. Thank you, Dr. Kalyan, for being with us and sharing your valuable insight into this. Sure, Ms. Napo, we will share it with you. That please do fill in that form.
Sure, we'll do that. We'll share that actually with the notes as well. Yeah.
And also this recorded session we will be sharing with you. So Team Edubex also, if you have any questions, feel free to ask, because it was a very good session for us as well. So the team, if you have any questions, you can ask. Yes, Ms. Lydia, we'll do that.
There's a saying that if you don't ask a question, you can't learn. So please ask question. Don't worry about whether the question is trivial, is it good, bad, don't have to. That's a problem with the adult thing many a times. So please ask questions. That is how we will learn. It's always that way. So please, somebody is raising the hand. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Doc. Mine is not a question. Mine is just an appreciation. I'm listening from Zimbabwe. I think I've also gained a lot from the discussions. So maybe fast forward, if you have got similar if you have got similar arrangement in the near future, you can also share with us so that we join.
Yes.
It's always a pleasure, actually. And I always believe that time is short, actually. But definitely, actually, all these concepts actually are, in fact, I do a 3-day workshop, actually.
Yeah,
for
sure.
each of
Thank
the industries. So it's quite intensive, but I try to cover as part of this while the time is a constraint. Definitely looking forward, and I'm really glad that, for that invite. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Somebody is asking a question. Which form can I fill?
Yeah, I have put the form there.
Sure.
So based on this, the feedbacks we received today, yes, like we can organize, a workshop on this. I'm
telling you, most of the industries that I go for, right from top-notch BMW, Bosch to any of the world-class companies, each one of these topics are a minimum of a 3-day workshop, honestly, because the justification will come only if you spend that much time to understand, not just understand, but also apply, because it's not mere knowledge, it's also skill. Yeah. So, sure.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Yeah. Presentation will be shared, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Robert, do you have a question? Don't worry, Zodba, this is a recorded session and you can get this recorded session. And Mr. Robert, if you have a question, please go ahead.
Not a question really, but it's an appreciation, as my colleague also have expressed an appreciation to say thank you. I'm from Botswana. We really appreciate the presentation. For me, it was insightful, but of course, so I'm still assimilating the concepts and see how, in terms of implementing what we have learned. So, but I'm sure if we can have Doctor has already said it's a 3-day workshop. I think he was trying to put everything in condensed, but I'm sure if we can have 2-3 days, consecutive days, it will really help me. Like now it's like these are big concepts. We are trying to assimilate them.
Lovely, Robert. Actually, in fact, I was sharing that voice of customer and voice of stakeholder, if you've noticed. So similarly, I think Renu can get a voice of customer from all of you guys as to what are the challenges you face. If you could list down offline after this session and send back to Renu in terms of what are your top 3 challenges that you face, then we can do a customized workshop. Because I do a lot of deep work and customized workshop on the strategic challenges and tactical problems that we face on the ground. And it'll be a workshop imparting skill. And that will be very, very powerful once you guys share your challenges, what you face in a project execution in your own scenario. Because I gave some examples of an IT project. It could be a construction project. It could be anything, since I worked in multiple industries. So if you could share your voice of the strategic challenges that you face, or the challenges that you face in any of the projects that you've been executing or currently you're executing, whatever, then we can design a program that way also. Yeah, Robert, that will be very powerful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Napo, for that feedback. And so if there is no further questions.
Thank you, Napo, for your compliment. Kind. Always glad to, share as much as possible. Knowledge shared is knowledge gained. Yeah. Yeah, Renu, over to you.
Yeah, so if we have done with all the doubts, then we'll wind up the session. So in the meantime, like Sir said that, you can send me your questions and queries so we can, create a customized one. So thank you everyone for attending this session, and we will inform you as when we're designing a master session. We will be inform you once again. So thank you everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you all. Have a great evening and a great weekend.